we were just going to talk about rock and roll today in general. We were talking last night about like, I don't know, it seems stagnant. I'm I
Yeah,
guess like I was telling you, I'm very pessimistic. I'm a full on like rock is dead type person. Kind of like a Gene Simmons. Everyone loves, or I love that interview. I think I've seen you post about it too. The Gene Simmons
yeah.
interview where he says, yeah, we killed it, with streaming. There's no
Mhm.
iconic acts anymore ever since
Yeah,
1988. He'll give you Nirvana if you push it, which I agree. Nirvana is the one of them. I also
totally.
tend to throw Marilyn Manson in there. I really do think Marilyn Manson was our last real rock star. I say this half jokingly, but half serious. They blamed Columbine on him, and when they blame a national tragedy on you, you're a rock star. Like it's
Absolutely.
one of those negative things. If you're going to be rock and roll, you're going to have to take the weight on your shoulders of some national
Totally.
tragedies. So I do throw Marilyn Manson in there, but yeah, no, it's very stagnant today. And I'm sure you wouldn't, like I said, we are both going to have two different perspectives. I'm a small town Northern California guy. You're in the heart of it. You're in Hollywood, so you would be able to speak more to like when you do go to the Sunset Strip. What do you see? I think I hear it sounds pretty touristy now. It's mostly people coming to see the sights. Basically, no one's actually living that way anymore.
Yeah, dude. You know what? Like the state of rock and roll today. For a long time, I also believed the whole Gene Simmons thing. Where he said like the nail is finally in the coffin. It's never coming back. There's nothing we can do to revive it. And it's weird because like I somewhat agree, but like I feel like it can. I feel like that attitude. I feel like that is what's been holding us back for so long. And this is like my first part of the answer before I get to the second part. The first part of the answer is rock and roll is dead. Rock and roll is dead. Rock music is not dead. I want people to like understand that there's a huge difference.
Oh yeah.
Rock music is just music that's inspired from rock and roll. Just like it has the same guitar sound, whether it's drop D, whether you're playing a Strat, whether you're playing a Les Paul or Ibanez, whatever you're playing. That's rock music. And so rock music to me has no role. It has no guts. It has no sex, drugs, rock and roll sound. It doesn't have that punch you in the face type of sound that gives you like goosebumps when you're listening to it. It doesn't at all. And I feel like today the problem is, and this is the second part of my answer, is that we need to say, why do we keep looking back to the past? Why do we keep saying, oh man, how great it was in the 80s. The rainbow was so great in the 80s. The rainbow was so great in the 70s. Oh man, the 90s, man, with the whole like punk rock, becoming mainstream. Man, why can't it just be? I think we keep looking back to the past without looking forward. If you look at the people that were in the 80s, like all the glam metal guys, they weren't like, oh man, like, let's have a Jim Morrison day, or let's have, the Doors day, like they have now, where they have a bunch of days named that 80s night, 70s night, Bowie night, Motley Crue night, glam night. And it's like, that wasn't around in the 80s. There were no, hippie night. There was no 60s night back then. It was kind of like, what are we doing now? What does society look like now? Um, which is the second part of my answer. We have to look forward and we have to say, hey, let's stop saying about how great the scene was and let's say how great we can make the scene now. Every generation did that. In the 70s, they weren't saying what were they doing in the 60s. They said, hey, the 70s, this is what we're doing. In the 60s, they weren't looking back to Sinatra, and they weren't saying like, oh, in the 50s, man, you had, Ciro's, and you had all the jazz stuff going on and all the Rat Pack. And they weren't looking there. They're saying, what can we do for the strip now? And in the 70s, what the strip now, 80s, strip now, 90s, strip now. And I think that the problem is we need to, which is the second part of my answer, we need to look forward and say, hey, what could we do to make the scene now? Which adds into what I'm doing, and me and a friend are doing at the Rainbow on Tuesday. I know September 2nd is we're trying to make a scene because kids need to say, hey, let's not come here and say, oh man, Alice Cooper sat here. It's like, no, what about you sitting here? Alice Cooper wasn't going around saying, oh, remember when this person sat here or that. He was saying that I am Alice Cooper. You know what I mean? Like it was a part of the scene, and I feel like we need to make that scene now. So if you are into rock and roll and you're a local and you're not even in LA, whether it's Detroit or New York or Sacramento, San Diego, wherever you are, in which is the NorCal with the not NorCal, but I think it was San Diego, Sacramento with the thrash metal kind of movement that came out. Like they were making their own scene that was different from LA. So I think if you're in your local scene, make your scene there now, because that's how rock and roll stays alive. It doesn't stay alive, which comes into the third part of my answer, which the third part of my answer is it's like a museum now, dude. Like, so I agree with you. Like, I go to the Rainbow now and you have dudes that are like 80 years old, like, man, back in my day, the Rainbow, we used to do this and we used to do that. And they're just trying to, relive whatever, joy that they had back then, which isn't a problem. But it's like, it goes back to your viral video, where you talked about like rock and roll, where the rock stars today. It's kind of like, if you look at all the rock stars that are kind of holding everything, the movement of rock and roll music up right now, they're all like our grandfather. They're like in their 70s. They're like in their 80s. Why is Mick Jagger still like pretty much the wildest guy out there right now? And he's like almost past death right now. Why is Keith Richards still the badass guy? He's not the guy that we think of like, oh, he used to be cool. We still think Keith Richards is cool. We're like, dude, there are no rock stars they can look to today where it's like bigger than life. And I think that adds, like I said, that goes back to the local scene of people saying they're trying to be like their heroes without being a hero. Let me say that again. They're trying to act like they're heroes instead of being the hero. And it's time for, I feel like, the kids that are in the rock scene, including me and everyone, like, be the hero, be that star, say that thing that may get you in trouble, do that thing that may get you in trouble, say what you want, say what you believe, be who you want to be, dress how you want to dress. And if it's controversial, that's the whole point of being a rock star. When did rock music try to be pop? When did it try to be safe? When did it try to, oh, I don't want to say that because what if people think I'm cringe? Or I don't want to say that because what if people cancel me? Fuck them, dude. Fuck them. You want to be in rock and roll, that is what it's all about. It's about saying, fuck you. I'm going to say what the hell I want to. If you don't like it, go listen to whatever pop star is out today that's going to, tell you what you want to hear, sing what you want to hear. And so my answer to all those three parts that I gave is rock and roll dead? Yes. Is rock music dead? No. We need to create scenes. We are the generation that needs to say, hey, why are we trying to be like them when we could just make our own scene? That's what I feel.
So it's funny, I actually have a couple of responses. I think, first of all, that's a good point. You say rock music is not dead, but rock and roll is dead. I think rock and roll, as far as the danger, is dead, and I don't think it can be brought back today. The way things are, basically, we're too sensitive. Our culture is way too sensitive.
Correct.
To have danger in rock and roll. Our culture cannot. Could you imagine all the girls who were crying on the internet about a Sydney Sweeney American Eagle commercial? Could you imagine their reaction to hearing that like Vince Neil punched a girl in the face at the Rainbow last night?
Right.
Like, could you imagine? And I'm not advocating for dudes to go out and start punching girls in the face. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just saying that like shit's gonna happen when you have a genre that is known to be dangerous. Like shit is just gonna happen like that, and you can't just fucking cry on the internet anytime something like that happens, or else this kind of style is not gonna ever return. We're way too sensitive for dangerous rock and roll.
Yeah, I wanted to add to Protomax. He said a comment, and it says, this is an interesting stance. I think having access to the history of all the time leads to much comparison. Yeah, like I fucking agree, man, because it's like we were talking about yesterday, Beckett. Like, we're like, imagine being a kid, right? And you have access to the greatest music in human history, all in your palm of your hand. You can go on YouTube 3 minutes and you could just say, okay, type in, the Beatles, who we agree is like one of the greats, the Beatles. And you can look up the greatest music. You can look up Motley Crue, Led Zeppelin, Nirvana, or whatever you want to, James Brown. You have a whole century of like the greatest music to ever exist in human history, all in the palm of your hand or in your, computer. And it's going to be hard because you're going to want to like be like those people without having any kind of creativity. People in the 70s, like I was saying yesterday, people in the 70s, they had very rarely had any access to anything that wasn't local to them at the time. You couldn't go on YouTube in the 70s and say, oh man, let's look up Dean Martin. Like if your parents didn't have Dean Martin, you weren't listening to Dean Martin. If you were a kid in the 90s, like you couldn't really, if you didn't go out and like shop for it with your hands, looking through vinyl, looking through VHS or whatever you're looking through. If you didn't look through any of those things, you really couldn't find the music that you want to listen to. And it took time to kind of craft something. So the funny thing is, like, back then you had more creativity because you're sitting back and you're like, well, I've heard Led Zeppelin. You're let's say you're, the glam metal guys and you're in the 80s and you're kind of like, I heard Led Zeppelin. I heard the New York Dolls. I've heard all these 70s bands. I heard the 60s bands. This is cool. But like, what other sound could we make? Could we make this harder? Could we just drop it down a note? Just drop it down. Drop D. Oh, could we go faster? Oh, well, what if we took this and took that and put it together? What if we, put on crazy makeup or crazy, outfits? So what if we did that? And you kind of had time to sit here and say, okay, we have great music, but we don't have a lot of great music. You had time to do that. Where now you have, as Protomax was saying, you have like so much good stuff that it's really hard not to want to be Led Zeppelin because of how good it is. It's really hard not wanting to be the Beatles or to be Black Sabbath or Ozzy. It's really hard when you listen to this stuff. And I believe, and this is the reason why today, to be honest with you, I try as much as I can, unless I'm with people, I try not to listen to YouTube Music or Spotify or any streaming services while I'm home because that's all I do. That's all I do. And I'm like, you know what? Can I put this away? And I just try to use vinyl. That's it. That's all I want to do. I try to get records or tapes. I try my best not to use anything electronically because that just hurts everything that I'm trying to create because I'm going to be thinking of the greatest music ever. Or if you're playing guitar, you're trying to be like, Eddie Van Halen, or you're trying to be like all these greats, Randy Rhoads. Like you're not trying to actually make your own. Randy Rhoads and all these guys, they were like playing with stuff until their fingers bleed 24/7 until they figured out what could we do different? And I think that's what harms it. You listen to the greatest music and it kind of harms you. So I agree with Protomax for that.
It's funny because that was literally the next response I was going to give. There's one of my favorites is Rob Zombie, and there's this interview. I've seen too many Rob Zombie interviews to where I can never say which one it was exactly, but there was one interview with him where he was talking about current day music, and he was saying that it's the internet. It's basically the internet and it's streaming. He was saying back in the day when he was a kid, he said you had the radio. If you were lucky, you had the radio. So like, sure, you got to hear a Sabbath song once in a while and that was your main inspiration. But then you had to listen to ABBA, and then you had to listen to, later on fucking Michael Jackson. Like, sure, you got Motley Crue when it played, but then you had to listen to the Jackson 5. Then you had to listen to Madonna. So you're kind of being forced to take these influences in. I always tell people, even if you're going to start a fucking death metal band, listen to the Beatles. Like, even if you're going to start a satanic black metal band, listen to Sabrina Carpenter, just so you know how to write something. You should be taking influences from everywhere. So no kids are really forced to listen to anything other than what they want to listen to. Rob Zombie said, whenever he hears a band nowadays, he says, "Oh, let me guess what your 3 biggest influences are. The bands you sound exactly like, because that's all you're ripping off." And then he was saying back in his day, again, when he was a kid and all his friends were starting bands, they wanted to play fast, heavy music, but all they had to listen to was the radio that was playing ZZ Top. So they were like, well, let's just play ZZ Top riffs really fast and turn it up really loud and see what happens. So then you made these new things, and it's Slash has also said something similar. Funny enough, it was more so about like drug abuse and alcohol. And he was saying, whenever people ask him, like, why do you get so fucked up all the time? He's like, we're just kind of looking to our heroes, but trying to turn it up one more step. So like, he's like, you hear about Ozzy doing this. Oh, well, let's go a little bit, basically play it a little faster, tune it down a little bit, see what happens. And yeah, nowadays no one's really forced to take in any other influences other than what they want to listen to.
Correct.
Like I keep saying, like we're gonna, like I was like the title of the video says, I'm gonna bring up Taylor Swift later. Like, as much as I'm a diehard like rock and roll person, I fucking love Taylor Swift. I love Rap by Charlie XCX. Like I still will.
I love
take all
Charlie
that stuff.
XCX. Yeah.
If I was gonna start a band today, if I was gonna start writing music again, I would, I would listen to all this stuff and take in. I mean, I love fucking music from Japan. Like, just anything you can get that's gonna, even if you're not gonna play that type of music. That used to work out for me pretty well when I was writing songs. I would listen to like shit from Japan and be like, oh, I'll rip this off. I mean, I say rip this off. I guess if you want it to sound appropriate, you would say take influence from it. But
Right.
because it's not as on the nose as like, oh, I'm going to write a rock song, I'll rip off another rock song. No, rip off a pop song and write it as a rock song. No, rip off a fucking classical song, rip off a Frank Sinatra song, but write it as a rock song.
I wanted to add to that. So I had a friend, his name is Garen Gash, and he was like a huge like DJ, Hollywood DJ. And he pretty much been around like the best of them. He hung with Slash. He hung with all these people, right? And he told me this, and this is so like great. He said, any bands that you love, none of them listen to their contemporaries.
Oh yeah.
None of them. He said, who is, okay, for example, you got all these metalheads. Yeah, man, metal. Yeah, I'm so tough. I'm hard, fuck anything else, blah. It's like, who Ozzy Osbourne's favorite band is?
The Beatles. Yeah, and
it's
Ozzy,
been a hard day's night.
It is funny when
you
know that you start listening to Black Sabbath songs, you can literally hear like John Lennon in his vocal melodies, the way he's John Lennon. He's just singing John Lennon over metal music. I mean, I am one of the people that says they invented heavy metal. But yeah, he's just singing John Lennon style over, and Kurt Cobain too. Dude, if you listen to John Lennon's solo music and then go listen to Nirvana, you're like, holy shit, it's the same fucking thing.
Yeah,
but it's over a different framing. They changed the frame of it. They just, you just take influence from something and you just put it over something different. It's really, I don't want to say it's really that simple, but I mean, yeah, you just don't listen to Led Zeppelin and then try to play music that sounds like Led Zeppelin. You listen to Led Zeppelin and then try to write pop music, or you listen to pop music and try to play something that's closer to.
Yeah. Right. The thing is, what's funny is people like I think the fans are the worst people that happens to music sometimes, because they really, the fans, when they try to do music, they don't understand. Like, for example, how people say, oh, grunge killed hair metal, right? And I'm like, did you know like half of those 90s bands were hair metal people before with their vocals? And let's add to this, Nirvana's song, the Come As You Are, that's from Killing Joke.
Yeah.
Killing Joke 80s. Go to your YouTube when you get a chance. When all you guys get a chance, like, go to YouTube, put up Come As You Are by Nirvana, and then right beside it, put up Killing Joke 80s.
Yeah, it's like a new wave song.
It's a new wave song. So the people that you say, fuck Elvis. Punk rock people say fuck Elvis. What do you think punk rock is? Punk rock is a response to the 70s 7-minute Led Zeppelin or, progressive rock songs, and saying, well, let's get back to the shit that they were doing in the 50s, the rockabilly and all that. That's what punk rock is. Bam, bam, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 with the drums. Like, that's what it is. It's like, so I wish people would say, when you're listening to music, stop. Just if you're, especially if you're an artist, if you are a metal artist, listen to other things. Listen to the blues. Listen to, as you were saying, listen to pop music. Listen to, I don't know, Japanese fusion or something. Listen to something else, because that is what gave all of the people that you're into influence. All of it. All of it is influence from other musics. They're not like Motley Crue wasn't listening to Iron Maiden to get influence. They weren't listening to all these things. They were listening to bands 30, 40 years ago, or they're listening to a lot of pop music. They took a lot of new wave and a lot of punk rock, and they took a lot of metal, and they just kind of fused it all together. because they have different inspirations. If you're into new wave, if you're a new wave person and you say you don't like 60s soul, something's wrong with you. Because where do you think the song by what is it? It's Tainted Love, a Soft Cell, right? That comes from Gloria Jones, a black woman in the 60s singing Tainted Love. It was like 1964. Like, look it up. I mean, it's like, so I mean, if you're gonna be into rock and roll music or anything, definitely listen to a lot of pop music, a lot of soul. For sure, number one is definitely the blues. I would say, look, like, open your palette and listen to different things. Don't just be stuck into rock and roll, because you get no influence in listening to something that you already know to do.
Yeah, no, it's definitely lack of like I said, forced influence. Like nobody is being forced to listen to anything different. And I guess that sounds like a bad thing, but in the same way that you force a junkie to go to fucking rehab, you got to force kids to listen to other shit if you want, if you expect them to write good music. There's this band, I don't want to diss this band by name, but there's this band I've been seeing on TikTok, and it's like they're doing Led Zeppelin rock and roll, and it's not Greta Van Fleet. There's another
I know
band.
exactly what you're talking about.
They look exactly like, all the comments are hate comments. Like they look exact like the guy's literally wearing the Robert Plant Madison Square Garden shirt.
Let's just say Taylor.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, you guys, they look young, so there is hope that they'll get it. I hope they do get it, and I hope they start realizing, fuck, we gotta listen to some other stuff. I get it when you're young. When I was 19, I was trying to write Nirvana riffs. Everyone goes through that phase, but hey, you have to take in other stuff. I think that's definitely the answer as far as like why nothing new is being created. And then another thing, we're just way too caught up on, like, it's way too trendy, just throwback culture, nostalgia culture. And don't get me wrong,
Correct.
I love it. And I wake up every morning and I look at nostalgia content and cry about how I'll never be in kindergarten again and we'll never have Blockbuster again. I get it, but it's like starting to affect the art. Like every movie is a remake, everything is a sequel to something that came out in the 80s. We're just way too nostalgia driven. Whereas, like we were talking about last night, when I was in high school, me and all my friends, we didn't listen to anything that didn't come out within the last like 5 years. And I'm not saying that's how it should be, but it's just, I kind of feel bad for kids today because they're just being bombarded with, hey, look at how much cooler stuff used to. Every kid opens up their phone screen and there's just the barrage of, look at how much cooler stuff used to be. Everything sucks now, and then for old people like me, it's just, look how cool you used to look and look how many girls used to like
it. Fucking sucks. Yeah, it fucking sucks.
So we're just way too nostalgia driven, and there's always a place for looking back. And I will always listen to older music, but if you're gonna create new music, you really got to listen to stuff that's not just being fed to you by like a nostalgia marketing machine, basically.
Correct. I agree.
And then I guess going back to rock and roll itself, like as a mentality, like as a lifestyle, I just think we're just way too sensitive. Like I said, imagine the girls that cry about Sydney Sweeney waking up to see Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee ran a train on a girl last night, or and she was drunk, right? That would be the kicker. Oh, she was drunk. Oh, well, that means that she couldn't, or right? Like she
couldn't say yes. Oh my god.
Yeah, like as if any girl was forcefully dragged backstage at a Motley Crue show, as if any girl, had to be tied up and thrown back. Come on, no, everyone's just way too sensitive now. Nobody could handle the stuff that was going on. Nobody could handle the stuff that was going on back then. And it was everywhere. And it's, dude, I'm trying to find this video for the next topic, and what I'm Googling is hilarious. It's funny though, I guess I try to transition into the next topic. Ronnie Radke posted some clip about, like, I guess like Spotify and Apple Music came out and said that rock music, the streaming numbers are doing really well. Like Falling in Reverse is getting a shit ton of streams, Sleep Token. And here's my response to the optimistic kids. I will see this from kids in comments. When I say like, oh, rock is dead, kids will get in comments on TikTok and say, No, actually, streaming numbers for like Sleep Token and Dayseeker and whatever of Mice and Men, those streaming numbers are higher than ever. It's killing it. And I'm like, bro, I don't give a fuck about streaming numbers. I'm talking about culture. I'm talking about if you
Yeah.
walk into Walmart and ask 10 people if they've heard of Sleep Token and ask 10 people if they've heard of Megadeth, they're all going to say yes to Megadeth, and barely any of them, if any of them, are going to say yes to Sleep Token. Like it's,
Right.
I don't give a fuck about the stream numbers. I'm talking about the way shit's going. So,
I agree. Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying is like, what you I remember yesterday you brought up Gene Simmons. He also said this about like, let's play a game, name any band. Could you go over that? Name any band from, I think it was like 1950 to.
You said 58 to 88.
Yeah, 58 to 88. Like you can name a lot. If you do 88 to now, yeah, like I said, you give you Nirvana, but other than that, if you're not actually into that music, you're not gonna know it. You know, Led Zeppelin and the Rolling Stones and the Beatles, your grandmother, your mother, your aunt, your uncle, you, your friends, everybody knew who exactly what they were. But if I go to my grandmother right now and say, "Hey, you ever heard of Ronnie Radke?" They're gonna be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like, you know, like, or any of these bands, whether President or all of them, like, you have no fucking clue who any of these people are, and that's the problem. When I'm like, people are like, rock is all the way back. I'm like, no, I can see that it's having like a little edge on streaming, but like, it's not. I don't think people understand like how strong it was, like, because they didn't live through it. And that's why I do feel bad for the generation now. It's like they don't know how strong this stuff was. They don't know, like, when the Beatles came out, like how it changed culture overnight. As Ozzy Osbourne said, it was like when the Beatles came out, it was like a black and white world turned to color. Like,
yeah.
I don't think people understand the cultural influence to the point where parents in the 80s were like, we gotta stop this music. This is terrible. Like, this is demonic music. This is evil. This is blah, blah, blah. Or in the 2000s, with the emo music, they felt like, oh, it's making kids harm themselves and crazy shit. Like, if you never lived through it, you don't understand how strong rock and roll culturally was for a long time. Even when it was dying throughout the 2000s, it still had somewhat of a stronghold to where, like you said, everybody knows who this band is. Now, you can come out, no one knows, and that is part because streaming is a little saturated. Demonic music, right? Because the streaming is saturated because you have so many fucking bands out there. It's like, who are the good ones now? Which that goes to another topic, but I know we need to move on. So go ahead.
No, yeah. Like I was saying, it's I think like I said, I think he posted the clip sometime last week or the week before, basically, yeah, just saying streaming numbers are doing well for rock music.
Yeah.
And rock is alive and well. And I think that kind of goes back to what you said, rock music. Yeah, of course there's rock music. There's a band from England called Static Dress who I really like, although they're definitely more of like early 2000s. They sound like Dead Poetic, kind of like The Used a little bit. They're really more in that vein, which I still will. I use rock and roll. People sometimes get mad at me. It's like my catch-all term. I call Sabrina Carpenter rock and roll. To me, if the music makes you move your head up and down involuntarily, it's rock and roll.
If it gets you horny, it's also rock and roll.
To me, if the mentality is there, it's rock and roll. Now, that being said, on the other side, of course, I will acknowledge that actual genre rock and roll is like AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, stuff like that. So I use the term for a lot of different things
interchangeably.
Yeah, I try to specify when I can, but